It's very nice to have you here, man. Very cool to have you. Most importantly, our topic for today, when it comes to romance, being affected a lot, in particular by technology. It's an interesting question for me because I like to explore how that has changed the landscape of how people are dating these days. Now, what are your immediate thoughts when you hear about that topic? Please let us know.
I think my immediate thought, the first thing that comes to my mind is availability, if that makes sense. Availability, selection, diversity, so many things. So I know that from the time where I was a kid until now, one of the biggest things that has changed is the amount of people you have access to. This is the biggest thing. And in general, having more choices is a good thing. It's a great thing, right? But at the same time, it can also be detrimental. Because you notice, like, for example, if you go shopping and you want to go buy a pair of shoes, it's really easy to choose between the red shoes and the black shoes, right? You have two pairs of shoes. But if you have like 10 different pairs of shoes, you kind of get stuck in this indecisive circle, like analysis paralysis kind of thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Sure. I often wonder, what is the psychology of it? Because now, if we think about the different generations, right? The first thought that comes to mind, okay, cool, you basically still, in this day, have the silent generation. You are following that by the baby boomers, and then straight after that, you've got Gen X, of which I'm very happily proud of, part of, I mean. So, and proud of, so there's a, and then at the same time, you've got your generation Y, your generation Z, and Alpha, where we are now. So technology is affecting all the generations now, across the board. And when it comes to technology and dating apps and how it affects people, what is happening? What exactly is the effect on it, and how in particular has it already changed the landscape? Because now, if you go to the silent generation, this is where you had families that were super big. I mean, I remember my grandmother, I think on my father's side, were part of like 11 children in a family. And it was like the farmhands, like, there you go, you need more people to work and make the baby, Romance was pretty much, the farm and the small town and the occasional village dances back in the day, like 100, 200 years ago. Now I'm going with that, right?
Yeah.
This is how when you lived countryside. But when you were living in cities at the time, what with the Industrial Revolution going on, of course, a lot more, unfortunately, like the bars would still be the place to go to and everything else, so that's very normal. There's a lot more I can say, but perhaps maybe we shouldn't go into too much detail.
Yeah.
But regardless, from a public endeavor to find your soulmate, or rather the one you want to marry, it's now become something that's completely online, trusting a landscape that a digital landscape that you're not in control of, and then trying to find the right partner. All partners, whatever one's into, as such.
Sometimes
it's like fishing. Hopefully, the first one is the final one, but So this is an interesting thing for me, from the public over to the actual digitization. And I remember there was a song many years ago by one of my favorite artists of all time, Ian Don, where he said in a line, and I think it was the third or fourth studio album, where he said, in the sentence, as close as we are, everyone's alone. And so I'm wondering, as much as technology was supposed to bring people closer together, has it really? Now, of course, I do have some friends that across the world that had successful, and how do you deem success? Like, they met, they had a great time, they became good friends, they eventually dated and married. So of course there are the success stories too.
Of course.
But of course I would hope the same for anyone who tries to go into online dating and such. But it's not necessarily guaranteed. So what are your thoughts? What do you say?
There's a lot to unpack. Well, the first thing is, I don't think there's ever going to be a guarantee. And I say this to my clients all the time, and prospects. Like, can you guarantee? I'm like, no. any fool who believes a guarantee deserves to have their money taken. That's the first thing that I say. There's no such thing as a guarantee in this life, no matter how you paint it. You know what I mean? But I definitely agree with this idea that the technology is supposed to bring us closer. Whether we're talking about dating apps or social media in general, it does bring us closer. It does make everyone more accessible in that sense, closer. But actually, it also puts us more further apart, because we end up investing so much energy, so much time being on social media, putting on, you know, the perfect picture with the perfect sunset for the Instagram, and
Right.
you know, having the best filters. Like, we get so far
Body editing.
Exactly, right? We get so far
Yeah,
away
so
from
much
reality that
True.
who are you getting closer to is a very good question. It's like, are you, if I'm looking at a girl or if I'm building a relationship with her online, whether it's a dating app or something else, I do have to ask myself, am I getting closer to this person who I think I'm talking to, or is it just her representative and then she's something totally different in real life?
Yeah.
So this is like a big risk.
There's no guarantee that the avatar is actually a real person.
There's,
To be true.
I would say at this point, you're about 85% chance that they will not be the same person.
Only 85? I thought it was a lot more than that.
There's still that 15% who are still like, I'm going to use my real self. Like me, I have my real self in the photos and people
Good.
don't believe it.
Good.
And then
Okay.
I do a video call or something, they're like, oh, you really look like that in real life. I'm like, yeah. No filter, no
So
nonsense.
there's already an expectation out there that people know, okay, yeah, you look good on the photo, but now I need to get to you in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, so I must say, I think with the youth of today as well, I found that too. They would be the one, when I was still teaching, they would often come to me and say, sir, you know, with their hormones all over the place. I met this girl online. And I'm like, okay, do you know her name? And they look at me like, dead quiet in their eyes. I'm like, all right, do you know, if you don't know her name, do you at least know where she lives in one? Silence. I'm like, okay, what do you guys talk about? Oh, we talked about our favorite games, you know, and things like that. I'm like, okay. And this happened more than once. On several occasions at different places where I worked over the years, this seemed to be the case. So commonality was far more important than just finding the person's name. That your avatar, your face, even though people know it is not completely 100% the way you look, is still more important than your actual name. This to me was a strange thing. In particular with Gen Z, and then what comes up to them, Generation Alpha, Gen A.
Yeah.
There seems to be like, no, it's what we have in common is more important than your name. And again, I noticed this the first 2 or 3 times it happened. But the fact that it became a consistent thing throughout the last, say, 4 or 5 years, I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, for us at least, I want to know your name, where do you live? They're cool. Now we can start talking, right? It's easy. But
I don't know if you have this in South Africa, but
sure.
Back in the day when I was in high school, we have a very simple tag. It was ASL.
ASL.
Did you ever use ASL?
Yeah, no, sorry, no.
So ASL simply says age, sex, location.
Oh, okay.
that's how we met new
ASL,
people.
okay, got it.
It was always like,
We had
ASL.
something similar back then, but I don't remember the exact title. I have to go back, but it boiled down to the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Where are you? What do you do? How old are you? You know, all that.
This is super popular with like instant messenger. I don't know if you use like A Messenger or MSN or something like that. And that's like first time a stranger messages you, hi, ASL. Immediately, that was the default.
And yet now it doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And this is really the point. Like the fact that that has now changed to be replaced with what do we have in common? Why should I even bother talking to you if we don't have X, Y, or Z in common? And then age and name and location becomes a thing. And I'm like, okay, is that necessarily wrong?
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
But is it necessarily wrong? And I don't think so. For now, at least, given what you have in common, of course. Hopefully, it will be uplifting hobbies and good things, you know, not anything detrimental. But you know, strange things may happen online, you don't know.
Yeah, of course.
But that's the thing, what you have in common is far more attractive to the current generations and the current dating scene than anything else. Anyways.
I wonder if there's like an underlying reason for that. Because maybe, I don't know, maybe it's tied to intention. Because if you're asking somebody ASL immediately, what is your intention? How close are they? Are we around the same age range? Are they male or female? And that's it. Like, I don't really care what we have in common. I want to know if you're accessible.
The other thing is, I think what has popped up recently is the amount of photos required in the dating scene. I believe in the past there was a thing of, okay, your face is enough.
Yeah.
But then, of course, as we know, you have to start showing a little bit more body. over time, you know, and of course women will have their opinion on that, men will have their opinion on that.
Right.
So regardless of whether you're into this or that, what's important is that now people seem to be asking for 5 photos at least. The front of your face and different body parts. And then of course the interesting thing is they also now start saying, I want to see you in real life. I'm like, okay. I was still getting used to the fact of preparing 5 photos somewhere last year. You know, I'm like, okay, cool. So whenever I used to dating app. But then I'm like, okay, hang on. You want me now to show a photo in my real life? This seems to have been a new trend. And I picked up on it. I'm like, really? So, okay. And then I immediately felt uncomfortable because I'm like, why should I share a photo of my real life? Whether I'm at the office or with at work or with my friends anywhere, why would I do that now when I don't even have anything back from you yet?
Yeah, that's.
Or if you want to go with that thing of commonality, we don't even have that established as of yet. But you're insisting on these photos immediately. What are you looking for? And that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Because immediately they're beginning to worry, and this is my suspicion. My suspicion for why they're asking for the real life photos with your people is to see, do I know them? Is there going to be a problem? You know, that. It's fear driven.
Maybe.
I believe it's the case. It's fear driven where they see, okay, you know these people, okay, I have a problem with that person, so I'm not going to come. Because that person offended me many years ago. And X amount of expletives while they look at these photos. You know? But of course, they don't really tell you how they feel, they just do it. So now, they're not looking at you as a partner. Now they're looking at your whole life to see how they will fit into it.
Yeah.
And this is interesting for me. Now they want to see everything, and of course, videos become another thing as well.
And video call.
Oof. No, I'm okay with video calls. I prefer video calls, actually.
Yeah.
Because then I see you in real life, even with filters on or not, I don't care. But as long as I can see your vibe, your energy, that works for me. No, look, I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not, but no one really is. But if you can spot that realness in a video call, in a comfortable way, then it's fine. But then I've also discovered there's a lot of people who prefer not to do video calls whatsoever. Anyway, your take on this, please.
I remember, like when I was much younger, like in high school times and stuff like that, it was definitely more of a vibe, but more of a vibe of what you have in conversation. Is when people actually had to type and talk to each other in text, right? Even then, like this is like early 2000s, right? So even then, there was still this idea of like, I don't want to be on a phone call. Like this is weird, this is awkward, and I would be we're still being antisocial even then, right? But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to be on the phone call, but I still want to talk to you, I still want to vibe with you. The first thing that comes to my mind is from the point of a person, anyone, trying to find the love of their life, as you mentioned, you know, like their significant other. In my mind, this should never be a goal, actually.
Interesting.
Because
all right.
The goal should be for you to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be.
Yeah.
If you have not found the person that you're compatible with, what your love of your life is supposed to be, then there's something missing within yourself that you need to work on, that you need to fulfill. It could be that there's certain goals in your life that you wanted to accomplish that you haven't done, certain things you didn't try, or maybe something from your childhood that you haven't yet unpacked. But there are many things that you can do to improve yourself, and then through that journey, you will find the person that you're supposed to be with. It's just that, honestly, it's just that simple. But it's almost like when you start a business in general.
Sure.
A lot of people go into business with the idea, it's like, all right, I need to make as much money as possible, so I'm going to do this business. I need to make as much money as possible, so I'm going to school for this career. And I'm going to get this degree because it makes a lot of money. But then they're miserable. And they're miserable their whole life. Maybe there's a 3% chance they will succeed, yes, but then they're miserable and they hate the fact that they have to burn their life just to collect money to burn it on perishable assets. You know what I mean? So if you go with that mindset into, okay, I need to find the love of my life, So this person, they need to be this tall, they need to weigh X amount, they need to go to this school. If they have these passports, it's okay. You see what I'm saying?
That very much reminds me of what are those dating gardens where like the parks.
The parks, yeah.
That's Shanghai or where is
Yeah.
I mean,
can you imagine making
but this is exactly what you're talking about. It's like, must have this amount of money, must be this way, must be this, must have this experience, this kind of family. Like, dear, I wonder what the success rate truly really is.
Well, probably not very high. But you know, if you really take into consideration these things, right? If you are a person that you have this checklist of your perfect partner, then you should look at that checklist and ask yourself, why? Why do I want somebody that's this tall? Why do I care if they have this nationality? Why do they need to weigh this much? Ask yourself, why do you have these requirements honestly? And you will learn something about yourself. And you'll be like, oh, okay, I have something I need to work on.
But based on what you say there, it then brings us to the conclusion that different challenges will have different what? Yeah, different challenges will have different approaches. I think I'm going to simplify it like that. The idea to find the love of your life versus the idea of starting a business versus the idea of any other kind of mission that you might be on will have different requirements and different approaches, of course. And like you say, when it comes to the hunting for love kind of thing, perhaps the problem already lies in the verb hunting. Or shall we say gerund? Yeah, you see, the English teachers never left my brain. Well, technically you can use it as both. Okay, I'm stopping right there.
But definitely going through that journey is what's going to help you, as we mentioned earlier a moment ago, building resilience, building that sort of grit or that meta that you need so that you can actually accomplish any goal. Because honestly speaking, like if you go through the challenges of finishing your degree to get this particular job at a big firm, or starting your business and going through the struggles of what it takes to actually get to that point, or trying to get that promotion in a big Fortune 500, whatever it may be, all of those trials are going to contribute to your ability to have resilience, to be able to try. And sooner or later, it's also going to contribute to your...
Yeah, but we are also selling that idea across the world in all kinds of educational institutions, aren't we? When I say we, I mean, I pretty much mean the so-called system, or the systems in life. The idea that you go to this school, or you go into this university, and then you can achieve all your goals, albeit now, whether it's for your Fortune 500 dreams, as you mentioned, or even be it for the kind of social circles you want to be in. And to a large degree, when you look at, as you and I both very well know, living in Asia for as long as we have, this seems to be a very rigid system. In South Korea, I think it happens in one way. Japan another, China in a different way too. In our separate countries as well, it happens maybe in completely different ways, but it is still something that you're selling people. That you score this high, it provides you more opportunities. And the focus is so much on that, that in the end you lose the person inside.
Your individuality, right?
Exactly. The growth of that spirit inside you, your own entity, who you are, it gets lost in all these other pathways that the adults, so to speak, force upon you to be able to get to where you want to be. And so I have to ask myself the question, what is a better balanced approach? So, okay, what is your motivation? What is your commitment to what you want to do? The amount of people that have been let down by whatever life taught them is the right thing to do, and I put that in brackets quite deliberately, because again, whichever country they're in, it may happen in different ways, but it's the same idea. Do it this way and the guarantees exist. You mentioned earlier when we were talking, never look for a guarantee. I love how you said that. But the people buy into it as well.
That's true.
And so if they can't get it, what is left? If they can't get their guarantee, then what's left?
Chance.
And are people ready to have faith? And this is something that I found is, I mean, even in my own life, to be honest, I'm not going to lie about this. Even when I used to work in education, when I worked in marketing and research, any of these areas that I went into, or areas I went into, it was always a matter of that it required a lot more faith than anything else, really. And it caught me off guard in the beginning, and of course that's what makes you nervous, because you don't feel you're in charge. But then humbly you go into it, and step by step, day by day, you have to trust the process, yes? Which is hard, because it's not something you learn before. It's not something you've necessarily dealt with before either, per se. If it is something you know, it gets a lot easier, right? But especially if it's a whole new field, a whole new everything, it does take a lot more faith. Now, why people are afraid of having faith is a very interesting question in itself. What are your thoughts?
I would say if someone is afraid of having faith or taking a risk or taking a chance, I think it has more to do with confidence than anything else.
Okay.
If you are a person that you're not used to taking risks or taking chances, or maybe you are, but most of the time it ends up in some sort of failure, then you are going to become more and more risk adverse. You're less likely to want to take chances in the future if you know that, okay, I took a chance, it didn't work out. So, bad example, but great example. If I tell you, oh, dude, Bitcoin is going to 100,000, let's go buy some Bitcoin. And you're like, all right, great idea, you buy Bitcoin and then you lose all your money. That's not how it works, but hypothetically, let's say that's what happened. From that moment on, you become much more risk adverse to investments. The same thing can be true for looking for love, right? You found somebody you really like online, on a dating app, you met them, it was great, but then they backstabbed you and it was a horrible catastrophe. You become risk adverse to dating people online. So it's like, we're trying to learn from our mistakes in a way by not repeating them. But at the same time, I think that there's a better way of doing it, where it's like, I learned from this failure, I can do it again, look out for the red flags, and make more educated decisions, better decisions in the future. Just because you failed at something previously, just because you took a chance and it didn't work out, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try again. You should definitely try again, because the next time around, you'll be much smarter about it. That's how I see it.
But then there's a question in my mind, and I don't disagree with you because I think you're quite spot on. It's, you're referring to a learned fear, or rather experienced fear, that will have two reactions, or two effects on the person. Well, a person can react in two ways, in terms of like, okay, I'm never doing that again, like you said. And based on that, never explore it anything further. They give up right away. Understandably so, because some trauma is really a lot. I mean, and again, depending on personality type and hand, it may be very hard for them to face it. It may take them a lot longer too. But anyway, be that as it may, the other one is, okay, cool, I failed now let's push for more. So you get both reactions to it. So these people tend to be the winners in the long run, of course. The ones that will have that, I'm going to call it a required stubbornness. Required stubbornness, At the lack of a better term. You can call that a Gillianism. A required stubbornness to face the nonsense of this life. Which, I mean, how do you teach that? How do you really get them in there? And it's really hard. It gets to the point of motivation for me. Now, okay, this story. It was 2020, it was during the pandemic. And I used to be very thin, right? I didn't have all these muscles. So back then, I was like a lot thinner, like 72. I went to a friend of mine at gym and I said, listen, COVID made me lose money and I'm angry, but I'm not going to take out my anger anywhere else. I want to go to the gym instead. I want to do something constructive with my anger and rage, something good that I can channel through in the right way. At least this was my mind at the time. So I sat down with him, we went through a whole nutrition plan, we went through a whole a training plan as well, and we went through the first month, the second month. That's when I realized my lower back wasn't so strong. I'm like, oh my goodness, I missed that in all my previous years of fitness training. But that's the thing, you think you know what you're doing until you realize you don't. So it was one of the smartest decisions I ever made, is to get a really good trainer who absolutely knew his stuff into this world, into my own exercising regime. Anyway, there were times in the first 6 months I wanted to give up. Absolutely, because number one, we started working again as well, right? So that was too busy. How do you make time for this? Blah, blah, blah. You know, you get into it, but then you realize, okay, what motivations do you use? Music has always been a great motivator to me. The right genre in particular, at the right time of day, man, that just gets me going. Dude, trance, house, EDM, you name it, hip-hop, but it's, darkcore even in some cases, you know, especially when you go jogging. It's awesome, right? So I love that. That gets me going. Also friends and all the good times, right? All of these things. My own personal faith too. So those are the things that motivate me. Other things might motivate other people again as well. But what I realized is consistency is key to keep that going, right? And how do you stay healthy? How do you stay in that shape that you want to be, whatever shape you want to be? How do you keep that going? try to be consistent. This is the answer. But then throughout all of this, I realized motivation is a joke. Because there are simply days where you don't even want to hear any more motivation. I don't want to hear the music. I don't feel like praying right now. I don't feel like seeing my friends right now. I'm just in a bad mood for whatever reason, right? Could have been the freaking weather. Could have been something that happened. Like, don't try to motivate me now. I need to like be in my own space and just process things. But then life moves on. You cannot continuously be in this space. So what do you do? Because you still need to keep on going. And it was there when I learned the point of, or relearned the point of, okay, motivation isn't enough. What is better is the idea of dedication, where it's an absolute commitment to whatever thing you're doing. That is the most important. Because dedication is a decision that you made. It doesn't require you to be super happy or super whatever emotion. It doesn't require you to want to do it. It requires you to do it and finish it and not stop. That's the difference for me between motivation and dedication. So in the pursuit then of a goal, and like I said back then, my goal was to exercise to get myself a little bigger, which I achieved not only by means of motivation, but mostly by dedication. That no matter how you feel or what you're going through, quiet that part of yourself down. Channel it if you need to, but mostly stick to what you're supposed to be doing for the sake of consistency and achieving your goal. That's hard, because we live in a world where people tend to care a lot more these days about how they feel than practical matters. And to my mind, you do need both, actually. There's time and a place for everything.
Yes.
My mom, my dad would usually say, of course. And I do agree with him there. You need to cry, wait a moment, and do it later, right? You need to run away and just be alone and finish everything and go. You know what I mean? That's the way I was raised. But it doesn't seem to be the case with the new generations at all. So it's an interesting thing for you to see that. But anyway, so in summary, dedication becomes to whatever goal you have, seems then for me to be far more important than whatever motivated you to do it in the first place. That's my conclusion.
That's what's going to keep you going.
I believe so. I would like to know your take on that.
There's a couple things, right? So first I see it as a chain link. And what ends up happening, I gave this example during my live stream yesterday even, where it's like, you know that you want to accomplish this particular goal. And I love to use the example of like, who do you want to be tomorrow?
Okay.
That's it. Who do you want to be, right? And think about every action that you take, almost every action that you take on a daily basis. If you have any doubt about that particular action, you ask yourself in that moment, just automatically ask yourself in your mind, is this getting me closer to the person that I want to be tomorrow? And if the answer is no, don't do it. If the answer is yes, get on your grind and do it. Simple as that, right? It could be what you decided to eat for lunch. It could be whether you are thinking about skipping on your workout. It could be you're going to bed early versus you want to stay up and watch a movie. You know, it could be any of these things. If you have even the slightest bit of doubt in your mind, it's like, should I be doing this? And the question, right, is this getting me closer to who I want to be tomorrow? Am I getting, because every little step counts. Every little step counts. And the routine that you create, so if we use exercise, for example, of course we know this very well. If your routine is to exercise, let's say 3 times a week, for example, right? And then the next week you're like, I'm feeling lazy, I don't really want to do it. And so you skip the first day of the week, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a break. I'm just tired. I have so much work to do.
This is where the problem begins.
Right? And
it begins right there.
What happens the second day of the week? Then the second day of that week, it becomes easier to give up, right? It's like, you know what? I'll pick it up next week, and then the third day, it's all gone.
But then can we make another giveism and say it's learned failure? Because you coach yourself to give up.
It's true.
Instead of actually motivating yourself to stick to your guns. Right?
It's true. So
anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No. So if you break that chain link the first time, then it makes it easier to let go of it after that and after that and after that. But the longer you sustain the routine, the more ingrained it becomes in your psyche. That it's just like, I must do this workout every morning on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for example. I must do this. It is my routine. Your body forces you to do it. It will not shut up. It will just ring in your head until you do it. But if you don't allow enough time, say 4 months to 6 months, something like that, of constantly following the same routine, then it makes it very difficult for you to keep that chain link, even when you feel weak, even when you feel you're not as motivated.
Yeah.
So you know what happens to me? I don't know how it happened. It just happened.
Tell me the story.
You know what happens to me now is whenever I feel lazy, right? Whenever I feel lazy, now I don't want to work out today or whatever, I get this little tick in the back of my head somewhere. It just starts, hey, this little ring. If I don't want to do my live stream, I don't feel like taking these calls, I don't want to do this work, I don't want to work out, I don't feel like cooking to any little thing that I feel lazy about, I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I get this ringing in my head, and it's like, the people who succeed are the ones who are willing to keep going even when they don't want to. And I'm just like, God damn it! Damn it!
This
Damn
is
it! I don't know where it came from. I don't know who said it, but it's in my head. It's in my head. It's like, oh man, I'm so tired. I worked for 10 hours today, 12 hours. I don't feel like working out. I'm too. And then my brain is like, the people who succeed and who accomplish their goals are the ones who do it even when they're tired, even when they don't want to. If you skip now, you're a failure. You're gonna lose. So I was like, damn.
But that's dedication speaking as an angel in the back of your head. It's an angel or demon or both. Some people may perceive it as different.
It pushes me in the right direction, so I'm like, it's alright.
I love that. Thank you, Komit. That's really, very cool.
I